Hello, I'm Wendy Liebmann, CEO and Chief Shopper at WSL Strategic Retail, and this is Future Shop. This is where I talk to iconoclasts, disruptors, and something else. I don't remember what it is because I'm talking to my business partner. I'm talking to my business partner who's already making me laugh, Candace Corlett. So I never think about having a great lead into her. Disruptors, iconoclasts, and something else, and Candace. Anyway, hello, dear Candace. How are you?
Hello, my dear Wendy.
Good to see you, as always. It's always such a pleasure to just hang out in video land with you.
I know. It's so easy.
It is. It is. Well, there you go. That's what happens when you've been together for so long. Right. On a serious note, last time we talked in the summer, the end of summer, we were very focused on all things baseball. Most people know that I then stopped looking at sports, listening to sports until pitchers and catchers show up in February. However, most people do not know, of course, that you and I and WSL do work in the football and other sporting arenas. Exactly. So we are now immersed in the football season as we keep an eye on our football clients who are looking to build innovative merchandising and retail experiences at stadiums. So here we are in the middle of the football season, or near towards the end. Anyway, enough of that. That was just my little pitch for you to all know that we do other things in health, beauty, food, beverages, pets, and anything retail. So there you go. Here we are towards the end of the holiday season, moving into 2024. And so Candace and I want to talk to you a bit about our latest work, our latest research. As you know, we're always talking to shoppers about how they're feeling about things and how that's impacting what they do and how they spend. So as we come towards the end of the year, we have some new work out that we are calling Caution Retail Curves. I said to Candace, who's going to be the caution and who's going to be the curves? She picked curves. I picked caution. Oh, well, whatever. So anyway, so that new work was really designed to help our clients, all of you, think about what 2024 and the beginning of 25 will look like. And if I'm doing a little pitch before I let Miss Candace tell us much about what's going on in the world of people and shopping, this is one of two pieces of work, studies that we have just done that you really do need, because it will set the ground for you, shifting ground, caution, curves, for 2024. The other piece we'll talk about for a minute is another piece of work that we've done, an update on all our health and wellness work that we do, which is also interesting. So anyway, long intro, drum roll, all we go. Hey, Candace, what's been so interesting in that study as we move towards the end of the year?
Well, Wendy, I think that there is a big gap between what we hear the newscasters and the politicians report about the economy and what shoppers are telling us. We have some startling numbers. We track people's attitudes towards their future finances. And the percentage of people who say that they are barely holding on to their current standard of living doubled from 2021 to 2023. That doesn't happen very often. Optimists are down and people who feel secure are down. So the shopper is painting a very different picture from the economists and the politicians. And so shoppers are not reflecting what we're hearing on the news media and from politicians about the economy. And that's a whole other topic. But, shoppers feel that prices are still going to continue to go up, even though gas prices have settled. But they are looking at the price of eggs and bread and rent everywhere they shop.
And of course, then you've got student loans coming due and all of those things, the pressures there, right?
And the interesting thing about student loans is that it is hitting hardest at the shoppers that brands and retailers covet most: millennials, Gen Z, and parents of young children. And if we want an explanation for maybe why traffic is down, it is certainly with people coming face to face with having to repay those college loans.
Yeah.
To say nothing of the rising cost of housing, groceries, utilities, and medical expenses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other thing that strikes me in all of this is because, we've all been out looking at stores, obviously the holidays, all of those sorts of things. So there's all of that. And sometimes we think, consumers, people decide, it's the holidays, it's been a rough year, carpe diem, I'm going to spend and be done with it. Or not. And we've said, in spite of the earlier in the year projections by the National Retail Federation, we didn't agree with them when they were so optimistic, and they've finally changed their comments, their story. Right. But the other thing that struck me when I was out the last couple of weeks is there's not that much that's really interesting to buy. I mean, I was in Anthropologie, which I love. Sorry, Anthropologie, I'm going to dump on you. And looking for holiday presents for the office and things like that. Nothing. I was in the Apple store returning something, fortunately not buying something, returning something. I was stunned. It was like, I've seen all this stuff, even if I was willing to spend $50 billion on a watch or a phone or something. And it was like, this is dull. This is commodity. So anyway, that's just my shopper point of view.
Well, the other observation is everything is on sale. And we are looking at 30, 40, 70% off sales. Yeah. Friends and Family Day at Macy's. I told you my story about walking down Amsterdam Avenue. My destination was the Kiehl's shop because things were 30% off. And then I'm sitting having a coffee and looking, and even high-end jewelry like Alexis Bitar has a sign in the window, 30% off. Yeah. And 2 doors down, the iFrame place has a sign that says 30% off. Yeah. So people who never thought to participate in sales are doing so.
Yeah. Well, that's the part of the reason I returned these earbuds to Apple, because I bought them at Apple at some outrageous $249. Mm-hmm. Then I noticed them on Amazon for $189 or $185 or something.
That's a big savings.
But I'd already, it was like enough already. I think on Walmart, they had them for $169 or something. And I would have changed them, but I wasn't quite sure if they were the same. Anyway, whatever that is, to your point, there's so many factors here. This nervousness, the concern about what the new year will look like. And I think, to your point, this understanding that, or this expectation that prices will not go down, other expenses will continue, shortage of housing, all of those things, not to be the grim reaper at the holidays, New Year, first quarter, because we want all our clients and companies to do well too. This is a really substantial concern on the part of Americans about what 2024 will look like. And then, of course, toss in an election, toss in all of those things, the world politics, that just make people feel very concerned. So are there any bright spots that in this new work we've seen, new segments of shoppers, categories? I know one.
Well, I think, there are the new utilities, the mobile phone and the streaming service, and no matter how much they go up, people will pay. Yeah. There's also a commitment to convenience. I mean, we've become we formed habits around convenience, and we've become such a convenient-oriented culture that we will do curbside pickup, even though they're charging us $5 for someone to run around up and down the aisles for us.
Yeah.
And, I think that there are not a heck of a lot of bright spots.
Well, we know one. Shall I give you a clue? Woof, woof, meow, meow.
Well, very interesting. We did a deep dive into pets, because pet owners are probably the new... Pets get treated better than children. I mean, we did a blog on how people with pets will hold on to their values. I mean, they will buy organic, they will buy vegan, they will
For
buy
their pets,
natural,
not just for their pets, right?
but
Yes.
they will cut back for themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if, if your pet gets sick, pet insurance is really expensive,
Mm-hmm.
whereas you have insurance.
Mm.
And so maybe people are factoring in, if this pet gets sick, I'm looking at $2,000-$3,000 in bills to
But there was
save.
another thing in our caution curves. I'm caution your curves research, which is fascinating, that I thought about pet owners. That reflected that pet owners forget pets, but they also buy more presents, more this. I mean,
They
I was
do.
just it was so I
They
thought if you're
entertain more,
right,
and they just seem to be the generosity that is exhibited for their pet seems to overflow into their whole world.
which there's a segment for clients, listeners, viewers, all of
Always
those
put a
things.
dog or a cat in your ad.
Right, that too. But I was thinking about that in how do you, as listeners, viewers, think about as we move into 2024, 25, this real need to challenge the accepted norms and look for new white space. So there's one that sounds really bizarre. Why would you look at a segment called pet owners when you don't sell pet products? It's not just showing a pet in the ads, but it's also that this group of people, for some reason, and knowing Candace and Debbie and Devin and team, I would just keep pursuing this to understand why, but this group of people, beyond what they do for pets, are more hospitable, more engaging, entertain more. This is a segment that if you're in the beauty business, you probably wouldn't even think about unless you're looking for dog shampoo or something, but even then not. And so this tells us in really important ways that we have to go beyond the typical segments and assessments as we look at things and look for growth in 24, 25, because if we just keep looking at things the same way, we will miss some of those opportunities. So I found that particularly fascinating in all the work we were doing in that. The other thing that I found really interesting in this, the obvious cautions about spending in general, I was fascinated to think about the channel shifts and having conversations with some retailers that we stay close to listen to what's on their mind for our clients and ourselves, and talking about the relevance of different channels. How critical is that? You talked about convenience. The drugstore on the corner, which we've always thought is a convenient model, convenient place, whether it's for my health or milk, or pet food, is that really convenient now? Because, I can Amazon thank you click and it can be here, or Fresh Direct or wherever in an hour or two. We can, what is that definition of convenience really look like moving forward? And how do we think about things in a different way? Is it about easy? Or is it about, how do we articulate that?
Well, we articulate it by price. And I am in awe of how the dollar stores, Aldi and Lidl, are on everybody's list.
Mm-hmm.
If you live near, I was talking with a woman, a client, last Friday, and she said she is in and out of Aldi twice a week. And, she's an affluent woman with 2 daughters, but she's in and out of Aldi twice a week. Mm-hmm. And that is the new convenience, and affordable convenience.
Yeah.
And you're right about Amazon. If you don't need your ice cream fix this hour, Amazon has it for you the next day.
Yeah. The other example I'll toss into that, which is, as when we think about the relevance of retail and what we're hearing from people as shoppers and their preferences. I mean, there's a product I love, which is a skincare product and a makeup product that I love that has been out of stock in my drugstore forever. That's where I get all my skincare. And I finally said to the woman who works in the department who was restocking the shelf, are you just out of stock of this continually? She said, actually, I think they might have we're not getting it anymore. I think the company may have discontinued it, L'Oreal. Miracle Blur, which I love. Anyway, she said, you might try Amazon, right? So I went on to Amazon, right? And then all of a sudden, I realized this is a product I love. I do not want to be out of stock of this product. I do not want to not get it. So all of a sudden, I signed up for a subscription for it to be delivered. And so now there's a reason I'm not in the drugstore because, well, there are other things, but maybe I'll put those on this. So, all of these things force you.
We're going to check out the subscription model in one of our studies in 2024 because the savings, and that's the lead line on subscriptions. Not that you will run out, but how much you will save.
Yeah. See, I didn't care about that. I cared about never wanting this product I couldn't get anymore. But you're right. Then I was like, wow, look at how cheap this is. And I have Prime, so I'm not getting charged.
When you're looking at 55% of the population that has virtually no discretionary income or less than they had last year, the subscription price becomes very affordable.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think those things are really interesting to me. The other thing you were talking about value and price, the other thing, again, we listen to what people say. We observe. We're terrible sticky beaks, if everybody knows what that term is in Australia. We listen, whatever, on subways and places and traffic lines of
restaurants, the best place.
Right, and theatre lines, movie theatre lines, whatever. Yeah. So all of those. And, hearing people start to talk about, no, you can order from, whatever, Alibaba, Temu, whoever, wherever, and you get the cheapest thing in the world, bad for the environment, maybe bad geopolitically, I don't know. But that option of what is convenient, where I can get the lowest price, if that's what I want. And then, okay, well, what does that mean for these traditional places I'm used to seeing on street corners? So I think all of this is really important for people to understand, and not just the underpinning of concern that people have about their finances and their financial situation as they move.
There's a seismic shift going on in access to products. And I think, we're seeing smart retailers deliver more services because they know that the merchandise is going someplace else. And there are not many of them who manage to present their website in store so people think first, I'll go on this store's website and order.
You talked about that. We've been talking about one of the stores we really love, and you all know we do these these retail safaris, and we just took a group to look at new ways to think about loyalty a couple of weeks ago. We've been doing a lot in that space because we know a lot of you are really seriously thinking about how to innovate either your brand, your marketing, merchandising, digital content, or your physical stores now as things are moving out and about. But in one of those trips, we took a group to one of the places we went to see was Petco. And in New York City, there's a Petco on Union Square, which if you haven't seen, go, or we'll do a safari for you. It's year end, I'm allowed to pitch. And this store, to your point about services, in the window, they're grooming the puppies. And listen, you just want to go and sit there, even if you don't have a puppy, and watch what they're doing. And upstairs, right. And then you talked about the services that Walmart's added, their pet services in
veterinary services. And, it's so easy to go to the Walmart and drop your dog off to be groomed, or drop your dog off at the vet and then scurry around and get the few things that you need at Walmart. That is the new definition of getting a lot done under one roof.
Yeah. That is an interesting thing, because as we've been looking at, we're doing some futures work, as you know, for one of our clients. And in that work, we've been trying to really challenge the way of thinking as it related to, okay, convenience. Is it everything under one roof? The big Walmart, the Amazon, everything, Alibaba, fill in the blanks. Is that model of convenience, and or then what happens to all the other places? So then does it have to be very specific and very category oriented, like this Petco, with the services, with the products, all of those things in one place, the beauty specialty, the vitamin specialty? What does that look like? So they're all the things we're really seriously looking at as we move into 2024 and think about the shifting, you said seismic shifts, the shifting landscape that we are seeing, and really challenging the traditional orthodoxy as it relates to how do we all have to go and do business, and how do we present ourselves as brands and retailers in this emerging world. Was there anything else in the curves and cautions, cautious curves? Caution.
Wendy, what people will give up, I mean, they continue to want, high protein, natural, no added sugars or artificial ingredients. But what they will give up is things they have to pay more for. And I think it's time for us to start making the case for why organic, why non-GMO, why plant-based ingredients, because these products usually cost more. And, the explanation of why I would pay more is kind of esoteric. Not everybody gets it. And I think the other thing that we're headed into the flu, COVID, RSV season, I was shocked to realize that the people who are most concerned about getting sick are Gen Z and millennials. And when you think about that, it makes sense, because they are the ones who can't afford a disruption in the routine. God forbid you should have to call the babysitter for an extra day or an extra couple of hours. And you have to get to work, and medical bills mount up. So I think people are, when you reflect on it, Gen Z and boomers have their routines, but millennials and Gen Z cannot afford interruptions in their routine.
And I think we saw that in earlier work we did this year or last year in our wellness studies, that I can't afford. Why would I be willing to pay more for something that related to health and wellness? Because I cannot afford to be sick.
Exactly.
I cannot afford to be out of work.
And that's like all of our information, it's cumulative.
Mm-hmm.
And we did see that where people said, I just can't, I will invest in healthier products because I can't afford to be sick. I can't afford to be out of work. I can't afford to disrupt the routine.
Yeah. But that talks to what you were alluding to before, and I was too in some ways. We have to be able to tell the stories in more effective ways to support why we're all doing, whether it's a brand, whether it's a category, whether it's a retailer, digital, whatever it is. We have to be telling better stories, because, much overused word, the commoditization of everything at a fingertip, click or snap, and here it is, means that for somebody to make a conscious change or spend more on something or add an extra something to their list, then it's really critical that we explain why.
Yes, exactly.
And I think you alluded to that when you talked about ingredients and things. Yeah.
And we have a study coming out the end of next week on the importance of conditions for men and women.
Mm-hmm.
And in there, we're going to see how food is a strong competitor for vitamins and supplements. And, some conditions I had to look up, because healthy diet is a cure and a remedy for people with endometriosis.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea.
Right. Yeah, I think that new health work that we're doing, health wellness, whatever we're calling it, it'll be the equivalent of cautious curves or something, is that there are so many things now that we talk about in a health space, whether it's erectile dysfunction, whether it's menopause, all of these things that nobody ever talked about before, that are now being talked about, which are both opportunities because they can be solved with product, or they're opportunities because we can sell them as products with products and services to support solutions. So that's the other thing that's disrupting on a good And the good side is, okay, this is great. These are things people are dealing with. And what are the solutions for this? And okay, now where do they go in the store? Who's interested in it? Who's buying it? Who isn't buying it? How do we need to treat it? So that's the other thing I found really interesting in this work as we funnel down to think about these emerging conditions that we now speak of openly.
Conditions that used to be taboo and are now on everybody. Low testosterone, muscle strength, thinning hair. You didn't used to talk about those, and now people are talking about them.
Yeah, it is interesting. We had, as you know, Muriel Gonzalez from the Vitamin Shop on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and it was fascinating talking to her because, you know, I go into Vitamin Shop, I buy bits and pieces, but you look at the products they've got, the brands they have there, and you go, oh my heaven, where did all these come from? And who are those? And influencer, you know, brands really influenced by, you know, some jock or person or celebrity somewhere, and the dynamics of that. But your point about food, healthy food, nutrition, things like that. I was at Michael Clinton, who was also on the podcast a few months ago, when he talked about his new book, Roar, and talking about roaring into the second half of your life. And one of the things, he had his first in-person symposium. All of those, you should register for the Raw subscription. Anyway, that aside, I'm doing a lot of pitching. This must be year-end Christmas
you are
pitching.
Excessive, moving the time limit.
Oh, sorry, that's it. Sorry.
37 commercials over.
Candace is going to pull the plug on me any minute. But what was interesting about that, he had a series of doctors, medical professionals, talking about whatever and longevity. And one of the things they talked about was, well, it's very complicated. Longevity is very complicated because the best solutions are the food you eat, the exercise you take, and the sleep you get.
And the sleep you get, right.
So you go like, okay, there are some solutions. Okay, people, tell me that story, as you were saying. So that new report, I think, is very powerful. I think it's quite diagnostic. So that beyond the broader study, which is really about how people are feeling economically about 2024, this is also about how are they feeling health-wise, which is the other piece, which is interesting. And then
the other piece is habits. We all know we get into habits and routines, and it's really hard to break them. And even people who admit that they are secure or optimistic about their financial future are being cautious.
Yeah.
And once you instill that caution, it doesn't go away so easily.
No. Well, and
I think we're looking at a couple of 2 or 3 years of extreme caution, especially if prices don't come down.
Yeah.
And shoppers, over 90% of shoppers agree they're not coming down.
Yeah. And I do think you also see, and we noticed it this isn't a pitch, although could be, a new tool that we developed about a year or so ago. Some of you will know it because thank you for subscribing, called the Shopper Performance Index. And this is where we generally look at sort of broad macro trends that are emerging and the implications. This is quite specific. This is about how people rate the importance of certain attributes in a category, and then how well a retailer does on those attributes for the shopper. So it's a short version of the long story, but one of the things that struck me in that work most recently was when we looked at the impact of price increases on categories like vitamins and things like that. And all of a sudden you saw the perception of the retailer decline because of those increases, which may have been small and incremental, but all of a sudden, you know, to your point about shoppers and habits and things, all of a sudden we're seeing that reflected in how they feel about not only the category, but the retailer as a result of that. So I think, to your point, you're always very wise about these things. The longevity of some of these issues that we have to be, it's not that people won't spend, it's that you have to validate why it's worth it. And the kinds of choices people are going to be making aren't going to be necessarily the obvious, this brand to that brand. Particularly, and you talked about it this last time, I think, that, you know, the improving quality of private brand or exclusive brands. You know, why do I buy
affordable choices?
Yeah. Yeah. And interesting choices. Interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
And, well-packaged choices and, store brands that can keep up with innovation.
Yeah.
But there are other opportunities too. I mean, most adults are going to get flu and RSV, or at least flu shots. And they're going to do that in drugstores. And that is a definite traffic driver. And how are drugstores going to maximize that?
Yeah.
How are they going to encourage people to stop in the aisles and put more things in their cart instead of getting their shot and leaving?
Yeah. Well, that's to your point about food and nutrition. That's why I think a lot of the regional grocers that, we see are being very innovative, and food retailers doing some really, really interesting things across the breadth of the store. And I think that's the kind of thing we have to think about. Who are the competitors? Where should we, if we're a brand, think about where we're putting our products, our services in the coming years? So there's a lot. 2024 is going to be, yes, a year for many things, a year to keep our eye on. Elections, economy, world, global chaos, and then
the shopper's perception of all of this.
That is the takeaway. So what 2024 will bring will keep us all on our toes. Of course, we will be close to the shopper as always. I think we've got an interesting road as we move into January, February in particular. That's why my last pitch of the day, all the new work. Okay, people, get on the website, sign up for it. Much to be said, much to be seen in all of this. And there we go. What's your favorite holiday gift so far, Miss Candace? Or are you just bored out of your mind?
I'm chasing the sales. And like you buy something one day and, it's a mindset. And you get in the habit of chasing the sale.
You're not a stupid shopper.
With your AirPods. Yes. I mean, I'm a big museum gift shopper, and I got really annoyed because they sent through this super discount after I had placed my order, and I called them up, and you feel badly doing that with a museum, but I got my money back.
You have to all be smart shoppers. That's all we can say. So that's the banner for 2024. Know your shoppers will be smart.
Know your shopper.
That's right. You be smart.
Don't make any assumptions about who they are or what they want, because we'll tell you in our How America Shops report.
Well, that's your final pitch. So I don't even have to summarize this conversation. Everybody has their list. You know what you need to buy. You know what you need to subscribe to. The good news is there's a lot of free content on our website, wslstrategicretail.com. I haven't said that for a long time. So jump in there, use that, and I promise not to pitch one more thing, except
and if any of this is confusing, just call.
Exactly. I'll give you Candace's cell phone number.
Right.
Anyway, it's always a pleasure. This is one of my favorite podcasts with you because we just talk.
Because we do it well and so long.
May our football team win. That'll make our client happy, and we'll sell lots of good merchandise. We'll be happy with that. And may you all be well and happy. And Candace, I will see you soon. See you in the future.